Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Global Planning meeting here in Copenhagen. I'm joined today with Lysa Wini from the Solomon Islands and Professor Alex Rogers from the University of Oxford. Lysa is Environment and Conservation Division, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change, Disaster Management and Meteorology at the Solomon Islands. And Alex Rogers is a deep sea specialist, marine ecologist, works with Necton, REV Ocean. He's a scientific director and knows a lot about the deep. So the conversation today will be about the deep sea. Some of you might have seen yesterday the third man descend to the Mariana Trench. I think it's great news. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the ocean decade. And so without further ado, I'll pass the mic to Lysa.
Hello, and it's good to be here. Should I answer some questions? Or?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your work in the Solomon Islands and how the marine environment is at the center of your work.
Yes, so Solomon Islands is at an exciting point at this time. We're doing ocean planning. That's like marine spatial planning, but we have to put it down to the language where people can understand and participate. So we say ocean planning. The issues that we face in our EEZ is that most of the activities that are happening at sectoral level. So you have mining going ahead with having their tenement sites. You have fishing routes planned on areas that go through biodiversity areas. So these are the issues that are happening that we are bringing it up to the government to say, hey, let's plan our ocean. So that's what we're doing at this time.
Okay, great. So to plan the ocean, you really need data. You need scientific data. And Alex here is a specialist in deep data. Can you tell us a bit about your work?
Yeah, sure. I'm a deep sea ecologist in terms of background. So I've spent quite a considerable amount of time out in the ocean sampling the deep sea to try and understand patterns of how life is distributed in the deeper parts of our oceans. And that's included ecosystems like deep sea hydrothermal vents or hot springs, underwater mountains, seamounts, and also more conventional habitats like the slopes around our continents and islands.
So there's a common stat that's out there that only 5% of the ocean has been explored. Can you confirm that? And can you tell us why?
Yeah, sure. Well, the ocean actually for us is a very hostile environment. Obviously there's no air. The pressure increases by 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters you go down. So you can imagine that the guy who's just gone to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, they would have been at pressures of over 1,000 atmospheres of pressure. And it's very cold and it's dark. So it's a difficult place to work, and it's not transparent to satellites and things, so at least not below a few tens of meters of depth. So we probably mapped somewhere between 10 to 20% of the ocean. But for some ecosystems like seamounts, we've only explored about 0.002% of that particular type of habitat.
So a lot of the time we talk about capacity, and some countries around the world, they have capacity to map their EEZ. An EEZ is an exclusive economic zone. For the Solomon Islands, what is the status, the state of your mapping? Do you know about what you have in your EEZ, about the deep? What kind of biodiversity is there?
That is a real challenge for us at this time doing ocean planning. We have been using data that we got on open access data to try and at least see the model of our underwater, our seabed. But it would be really nice to have extra exploration on what we have. Yeah, so that is a big challenge for us. In terms of mapping our EEZ, there's efforts at the regional level that's supporting us, so that's a good support for us. But then there's this thing about transferring that knowledge to locals as well. So if that happens, it would be really great.
Because, I mean, in concrete terms, when you have a small island developing state such as Solomon Islands, also called large ocean state, what size, I mean, it's 900 islands, the Solomon Islands. What size EEZ do you actually have?
Yes, 900 islands is just 2% of the entire country. 98% is about 1.6 thousand square kilometers, million square kilometers. Yes.
Okay, so just to compare, that's probably twice the size of France, if I'm correct. Yeah.
Probably is.
Yeah. So that just gives just an idea of the scale of your ocean. Which is why I like to call small island developing states large ocean states. Going back to the data acquisition, what do we need to do to acquire data?
Well, in the case of much of the EEZ, the Solomon Islands, I mean, you'd have to get a significantly sized ship out there to actually map the seabed using sound, so multi-beam acoustics, and then to actually sample and send down vehicles to survey the areas around the Solomons. I actually work for an organisation called REV Ocean. We're currently building a ship to actually go around the world and fill in gaps in knowledge such as around the Solomon Islands to enable people to understand what biological riches they have in their own waters and also out in the high seas. It requires significant infrastructure. It also requires people who are trained in those areas of science as well.
So you're an experienced diver, Alex. When you go diving, what's the deepest you've been, and what do you see down in the dark? You've been in a submarine many times. What kind of environment can we expect from such deep ocean?
Well, actually, I normally scuba dive on coral reefs, which are tremendously rich, obviously, in life. But actually, some deep sea ecosystems can be equally as complex and as rich. So we've dived on cold water coral reefs using robots down at depths of 1,000 meters, where there's a huge diversity of life associated with those reefs. Seamounts are real biological hotspots, and there are probably loads of seamounts around the Solomon Islands. They're often very important for fisheries because the fish gather around them to feed. So they can have very rich coral habitats. They can be important feeding grounds for fish, whales, seals, seabirds, turtles. They can even be important navigational waypoints because they affect the Earth's magnetic field, and animals like turtles navigate by using the Earth's magnetism. We see very rich ecosystems even down in deep ocean.
What is the perception of the ocean in the Solomon Islands? How does the Solomon Islanders perceive the ocean, and particularly looking at the open ocean, the deep, the pelagic area? How do they perceive it?
There's a notion in Solomon Islands that I own the ocean as far as the eye can see. And so that is how deeply connected the people are to the ocean. The ocean, as far as I can see it, it's mine. I interact with it. I utilize it. It makes who I am. It's their identity as well. Yeah, so that's how deeply connected the people are to the sea. But coming to the underwater conversation, we were starting to show what's underneath the water. And now people were saying, what we only see, we thought of the water column, not the seabed, not the seamounts, not the high biodiversity that we have. Why do we have that? Yeah, it's because of this morphological structures. Yeah, so that's another interesting angle as well to get people participating in ocean planning.
In the Solomon Islands, are children, for example, taught to learn about the ocean, to care about the ocean, to snorkel, to go in the ocean, go fishing? Tell us a bit about your way of life.
Yes, so about 80% of people still live in the communities and villages, and so they use the ocean to go to school, paddle to school. They use the ocean to bathe, to wash their food, to cook their food. So it's a big, but then there's also this transition where you have people moving to the cities and now more using services. So for example, I appreciate the ocean more when I went to university and studied marine science. And then I realized, wow, I have an ocean that is so remarkable, and I didn't appreciate it living in it. Yes.
Yeah. So do you think there's an inspiration, a source of inspiration for Solomon Islanders when you go home, when you talk to them about the ocean decade? Do you think it's a source of inspiration for them? That might be something they can engage with?
Yes, especially when you start showing the things that they have not seen. Yeah, for example, we know about the sea, how we utilize it, we're fishing it, but we haven't seen the underwater. And I think that is a good way of engaging them further. Yes.
So going back to spatial planning and the deep, so you've just released a new book, Alex. Can you tell us a bit about this book?
Yeah, it's called The Deep. It's the wonders of our ocean and how to protect them. And really it's about my experience over the last 30 years as a deep sea biologist and marine biologist, and really looking at threats to the ocean through the things I've seen while I've been working. So, I've worked on seamounts in the southern Indian Ocean, and we found damage from fishing and lost nets and fishing gear. I've worked in the Caribbean on coral reefs, and we found masses of plastic on those reefs. And then talking about the fact that actually we can solve many of these problems. So I talk about the ability of the ocean to recover from damage, and there are some amazing examples where we've hunted some marine animals. I give an example of the Antarctic fur seal, almost to extinction, and now there are 4 million of them on the island of South Georgia in the South Atlantic. And the book finishes really with giving sort of the large-scale things we have to do as humankind to solve the problems we're facing, but also what you and I can do as individuals to make a difference to the ocean.
So would you say that the deep is not spared from all our actions, all our anthropogenic harmful actions? Do you think the deep is equally damaged or harmed from all that?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've really learnt over the last few decades about the ocean is its interconnectedness. So we've been working in the deep sea and found all of our sediment samples contaminated with microplastics, for example. We know that the deep sea, most of it depends on the surface for its supply of food. So when climate change affects patterns of phytoplankton production in the surface layers of the ocean, it also affects the deep sea. So yes, we are affecting deep sea, and in fact we just had the 4th person to visit the Marianas Trench in a submersible, deepest part of the ocean, and they found a plastic bag, the Challenger Deep. So
we'll go. We'll slowly wrap up our talk here, our conversation. One topic that we could touch upon a little bit is deep sea mining. It's very hot at the moment, and it's an opportunity for some to mine for minerals that are rare, that are really sought after, and they're not necessarily available on land. What is the state of deep sea mining in the Solomon Islands?
At the moment, we have identified areas for deep sea mining, but it's as far as it goes, because at the policy level, we do not have the frameworks in place as well. So I think before we get into deep sea mining, it's important that we have the frameworks that would guide us and protect us if we should go down that path. Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of the time we worry about the ecosystems that are down there, that are fragile. How many species are in the deep that we haven't discovered?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, it's been estimated there are something like 2.2 million species in the oceans, of which we've described 10%. So that means 90% are still to be discovered. And in the deep sea, that figure is percentage is much higher. So whenever we go to a new part of the deep ocean, we find dozens of new species. So I've been I've had a sea spider named after me, and a carnivorous sponge, and dare I say it, a snot worm. So, so we do find here, and somewhere like the Solomon Islands, where the deep sea's not been explored at all, I would expect to find, many new species, not just at the species level, but probably new genera, new families of animals, maybe even new communities and new habitats.
So we'll just conclude on the Ocean Decade. We've been here for a couple of days at the Global Planning Meeting, the Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. Lysa, what will you go home and tell your fellow Solomon Islanders?
We're on the right path. We're planning our ocean. We're supporting the decade from our community level, from our national level. And so I would say that I would encourage everyone that let's all participate together in managing our ocean at the national level, and that contributes to the global level.
Thank you. And Alex, do you have some final words of wisdom to our viewers on the deep and the Ocean Decade and everything?
Yeah, I think my first word would be learn about the ocean and the deep ocean, understand what it does for all of us, and then understand its value. I think the decade is a really exciting, tremendous opportunity for all of us to learn much more about the ocean. I really hope that REV Ocean, with its new vessel, can really assist the decade, go out to places like the Solomons, bring local scientists on board the ship, get them to actually help do the work to really understand what's in their own waters.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you very much, Lysa. Thank you for tuning in, and tune in tomorrow, same time, for another Facebook Live. Thank you.